What's good, gamers? Accolon here, and of course, welcome back to each and every one of you. We are going through yet another cinematic. And now, this one's a little bit weirder. There's some lore, but also some features and stuff coming in the new expansion, The War Within. We're going to go through the story bits. We'll watch all of the things that's also been announced and all the features that's coming, and I'll maybe have an opinion or two on some of those features. But for the most part, we are focusing, like hard focusing on the lore, because even though the cinematic is only 1 minute 55 and the lore bits are probably just like 30 seconds off that, there's a lot to unpack here. So strap in. Let's get started, shall we?
Look.
My visions are not the same as the others.
I want to just very quickly say I'm so hyped for Illyria finally making a comeback to the story. Illyria is another one of the World of Warcraft characters that we can sort of just chalk down to the forgotten cast of World of Warcraft, because so often in World of Warcraft, a character will be introduced, and this is a very hyped character, and it's a character that has such a good story, but then that character gets completely forgotten for like multiple expansions before they finally show up again and do something. And Illyria really is one of these characters. I think Turalyon is the same. I think a lot of people have been super hyped for Illyria, Turalyon. There's still that whole thing with their son, where we're not entirely sure if that could be the Child of Light and Shadow that has been foreseen in the prophecy, because obviously we're speculators. We're always going to not go with the obvious that it might be Illidan. We're always going to want to go a little bit differently. So Arator is still a character that a lot of people want to see something happen with in the story, but Illyria coming in immediately saying, my visions are not the same as the others. And then we get this immediate shot. Now, the rest of her words seem to not line up with this. It seems to suggest that this is not what she sees. So apparently she has spoken, and probably she's spoken to Turalyon. Turalyon most likely get these visions too. And Turalyon has told her about the giant ball of fire, which, as I said yesterday, for those of you that haven't watched it, the color of this giant fireball is interesting, because we have 3 distinct colors here. The 2 Azerite colors, which we've always accepted as being Azerite colors, and then a third one, the orangey deep red. And that color very much aligns with Gorabol, Sargeras' blade. It looks like Sargeras' blade. You have to go watch yesterday's video if you really want to get the deep dive on that, because I go into a lot more detail, but I thought it was prudent to at least mention it. Now, let's for a second imagine that Illyria's visions do actually include this giant fireball, but that's where her visions sort of deviate from everyone else's. So she will see Azeroth, but then she is shown this void and the movements of the void, and she hears the calling of the void. The reason I really want that to be the truth is it opens a lot of speculation, because obviously Azeroth can't show void to characters that have not been touched by the void, because that will immediately make those characters think, oh, this is an old god speaking to me. There's another old god hiding somewhere, because everyone knows how the old gods operate. But perhaps Azeroth chose Illyria as her champion specifically because she knows Illyria knows what void visions look like. And more importantly, Illyria has shown herself capable of deciphering void visions. And this is where things really open up. I want to share something. I don't often do this, but I want to share something with you guys that was sent to me over on Twitter by Quancelsaurus. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. But he said, riddle me this, and I will riddle you. You think the Titans brought order to this world? No. They shackled it. What they could not control, they imprisoned, just as the aspects did to us. So, Raszageth here, we have speculated on this in the past. Yes, a lot of people have pointed to these 2 pictures and have said, what the hell is going on? Why does the Lost Titans artwork literally one for one look like these prisons? I'm going to come out on, like, just right out the bat and say, yes, I do not trust the Titans. There's been more than enough evidence in this last expansion, Dragonflight, that have shown us that the Titans are not to be trusted. In fact, the Titans' own constructs, there are groups of them that turned against the Titans because they stopped trusting the Titans. Because the Titans believe that only they can create, and the way that they create is by ordering what is already there. They don't create anything of themselves, and the way they order things is, as Razageth just explains here, if they cannot control it, they imprison it. And as far as they're concerned, that is order. We have ordered it. Congratulations. The fact that these two look identical goes back to well, let's call it a divisive moment in the history of World of Warcraft, because it was an awesome cinematic that divided the player base, and then it was an expansion that really divided the player base. But the Shadowlands cinematic, Sylvanas' last words, this world is a prison, and I will set us all free. The Lost Titan, Azeroth, imprisoned. Why? Because the Titans realized that they cannot control her. Then we go to Ny'alotha. Just recently, I've been running some Ny'alotha because I didn't play a lot during BFA, and I have a bunch of quests in my quest log that still needs to be completed from BFA, and I want to get that shit done. So I've been running a bit of Ny'alotha, and on the first fight with Rathian has this giant speech, as most, bosses do, and in this speech, he says that N'Zoth showed me a vision. He showed me the truth. He showed me that we will not be able to save Azeroth without him. He and he alone can save Azeroth. And I am starting to think, what if we are misinterpreting the whole of what is to come, the whole saga of what is to come? We all believe that Xal'atath is the enemy. Why do we believe this? Because the cinematic shows it. Illyria sees the void. She sees their dark movements. We've been told that Xal'atath is the harbinger of the void. We see that there's Xal'atath and the Nerubians, but I'll show you something that's very, very interesting that may or may not come to fruition here. What if Azeroth being, and we know that she is at least to some extent void infused, what if Azeroth is calling all of her children, both those that aren't of the void and those who are, in order to be free? We'll get into a lot of this, and I'm skipping throughout the whole thing. I'm basically giving everything away here. We're not even going through the video and doing this bit by bit. But Xal'atath is another great example. Have any of you ever asked yourself why Xal'atath presents as an elf? And then more specifically, why is Midnight taking place in Quel'Thalas? I mean, Quel'Thalas, yes, it has the Sunwell. That is true. But Quel'Thalas isn't, surely it's not the most important part of Azeroth for the Void. The Old Gods have very rarely launched attacks on the Sunwell. Most of the attacks on the Sunwell came from Arthas and also from the demons. Not the Void, yes, they've certainly tried before. But what may be interesting, and the reason she is presenting as an elf, and this is wild. What if Xal'atath didn't come from the Void? What if the Xal'atath was once a high elf? A high elf that realized the truth, or saw at least some of the truth. Because right now, my theory is that everyone has parts of the truth, no one has the whole truth, and only Azeroth knows the whole truth. And the whole truth is that not the Void or the Titans can save Azeroth. If either of these two sides win, Azeroth becomes their puppet in order to bring about their version of the machinations that they believe the universe should consist of. But that rather, we are the saviors of Azeroth. And the only way to save Azeroth is to truly free Azeroth from all of the foreign cosmic forces that have made Azeroth its home. What if Xalatath was a high elf? And she turned to the void due to the understanding of what the Titans had done, due to the understanding of just how bad the Sunwell is, how bad the light is. She turned to the void and she became their servant. But this would have happened tens of thousands of years ago. This would have happened during the very early days of High Elven society, because we know that Xalatath has been around for a very long time in the form of a blade. So she would have had to fall very early on in the Elven Empire. I'm not going to go too deep into that because there's not a lot of information there, but it's always struck me as odd that Xalatath would present as an elf, pretty much immediately present as an elf. When she has been in the hands of dwarfs, she has been in the hands of elves, yes, but she's also been in the hands of literally every other race almost on Azeroth. So she could literally draw from any race on Azeroth, but seemingly elf is what she settled on. But what if she's not drawing on any specific race? She's literally what she is. She's an elf, and she was imprisoned within the blade. Anyway, let's keep watching.
No radiance. No song.
All right, so this gives us a little bit of insight on some of the visions that some people are getting. When we looked at Anduin and Thrall, their vision wasn't a song. It was actually hurting them. If you remember, there was this high screeching sound and then both of them grabbed their heads. That wasn't a song, but she's saying no radiance, no song, meaning that there are even others that are getting radiant visions and getting songs. So Azeroth is clearly showing different visions to different people on Azeroth. What is going on?
Just the shadow taunting me from below.
I believe we just saw images of her vision. So things that she's seen Xalatath, she's seen the movements of the Nerubians. Very interesting story. But again, you have two elves, like two void-touched elves going up against one another. What if Midnight is not what we thought it was going to be? What if we are going into this thinking Midnight is where we finally kick the Void's ass, when in reality Midnight is the expansion where we realize Xalatath is our friend. Xalatath is actually not meant to be our enemy. What if Azeroth has a goal for Xalatath? What if it was Azeroth that turned Xalatath to the shadow, but now Xalatath needs to realize that actually I just needed you to turn to the shadow for power. You shouldn't serve the shadow. You should still serve me. Oh, there's so many possibilities. I'm so looking forward to this zone though, bro. The Nerubians have such a rich history. All of these zones obviously look phenomenal, look amazing. I mean, this is nothing new, right? But we'll get to some very interesting, like a very interesting little tidbit, shall we say, very soon. So I just want to clarify, right at the start, I immediately yelled, oh my god, it's the sword. Because it looked like the tip of the sword. Yes, I'm going to take the giant owl there. I was obviously wrong. We've since found out that actually it's a giant crystal. What I will say about this crystal, it is not naturally there. At least it doesn't look like it's naturally there. If you look at the area around the crystal, it's cracked and broken, suggesting that this crystal landed there very, very long ago, obviously, but it is not a natural part of that cityscape, of that skyscape. It doesn't belong there, although it is bringing light. It could be a giant Naru, which would mean that the light has lain dormant on Azeroth for very, very long. This could actually be where the power of all light wielders come from. So the fact that we have things like priests and paladins on Azeroth, that this may actually be the source of their light. So while we know that the Void and the Titans have been fighting over Azeroth for a very long time, we know that Fel has been fighting over Azeroth for a very long time, this may show that the light has been quietly spreading its influence throughout Azeroth for a very long time, but it does what it does best. It does it through influence, indoctrination. It doesn't do it through direct conflict. but it also gives them the ability to monitor things on Azeroth and know when it is time to send the army of the light. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I think Yrel is going to show up, and it is going to be a battle. There is a lot of inner workings with Yrel's appearance that will, like, a lot of questions are immediately raised when Yrel shows up. You have Turalyon. How will he react? We know that he is actually part of the Army of the Light. We have Anduin, and how will Anduin react? Will Anduin immediately accept the Army of the Light? Or will we actually see Anduin turn a little bit more dark as things go on? Remember, this is also the expansion. We know that Anduin is going to play a huge part in this expansion. Illyria being there, Xal'atath being there, and we have the parts in the book, Shadows Rising, second last chapter, where Anduin has Void forming on his shoulder, running down into the palm of his hand, dissipating. Void Anduin, maybe. Shadow Priest Anduin, possibly. Very excited for Delves as well. Like, just nuts, bro. This is my favorite feature, by the way, Delves. Really looking forward to that. And of course, this as well. I'll pause here. I did say I'll give a little bit of my opinion as we go through it. Delves is my favorite feature. Warband's my second favorite feature. This is my most problematic feature. Not because I'm not super excited for Hero Talents. I think they could be really cool. But this is sort of the one part of that. It could make or break it, right? It's dangerous. You're adding a bunch of new talents and you're giving players choice between all of these talents. But this can so easily break a meta that we've spent the last, expansion trying to establish. It's gonna be, like, it's gutsy, and I like it. I like that Blizzard is going bold, and they're going big, and they're saying, hold my beer. I like that, but I also, like, you can see how Hero Talents can absolutely backfire. So it's going to be interesting to see how Blizzard approaches the Hero Talents. I think this is going to be something that Blizzard wants a lot of testing on the PTR. I know a lot of people pointed towards the Earthen Dwarves, and a lot of people were sort of upset about the Earthen Dwarves. I am literally the opposite of upset about the Earthen Dwarves, and the reason for it is these are the oldest ancestors known to us of the Dwarven Empire. If anyone is going to know the history of the Dwarves, what exactly happened to the Dwarves after they got the Curse of Flesh or the Gift of Flesh, depending on your perspective, they are the ones that's going to have this. It's also going to be, like, super interesting to look at the Oathbreakers, those who turned against the edicts of the Titans, to find out why. Why did you turn against the edicts? Because remember, the Earthen were created by the Titans. The life that they have is because of the Titans. They weren't just ordered. Well, maybe they were. We don't know, but it's going to be very interesting to see exactly how does this play out. Dynamic flying, obviously, going to be super good. I want to show you guys something here. There's a very interesting bit here. New raids and dungeons. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a paladin. One of the bosses in one of the dungeons. It's one of the Arathians. It doesn't look like it's a void-infested Arathian. Remember, they told us at BlizzCon that the Arathians are currently under attack by the Nerubians and we have to help them. But they also mentioned very briefly that there are two factions of Arathians. The Arathians aren't entirely united. There's differing beliefs within the Arathians. Maybe the light isn't as friendly as we have come to expect them to be. Now, the Arathians are another one of those races that I'm super, super, super excited for. Mainly because these Arathians come from Arathi Highlands, but very long ago. In fact, the Arathians are very interesting in that these are Arathian Highlanders that left Arathi to go to a completely different place on Azeroth, a forgotten human kingdom or a secret human kingdom. And it was from that kingdom that they ultimately made their way into Dawn, or into this new world that they now find themselves in. What's that world? Where is that? Avaloran? Maybe. It could be. We don't know.
The fate of our world rests upon the edge of a knife.
Absolutely love that. And then, of
And
course,
our
we get
battle
this.
lies deep within.
Okay, so I need to talk about this because there's a lot of people that will crucify me if I do not. Firstly, the markings on her face. There's something oddly familiar about these markings. It's markings that we have seen before. These are, some of them at least, are very obviously void symbols that we've seen in other void areas. But right below her eye is a very interesting symbol, a half moon. And then in her eye, that looks like Elune. That looks like Elune. Now, it could be that Blizzard just made it to make it look cool. But that, to me, is highly doubtful. I don't believe that this was just done to look cool. I think Blizzard doesn't do anything to just look cool, especially not when it comes to story elements. I do think, like, this speculation is as old as Legion. This is when we first started coming up with speculations about Elune. And in that time, I already said that there are things about Elune that suggests that she is a duality. She is light and void. She is the mistress of both. She was made by both, or at least infused by both. There are quiet little whispers about Elune everywhere. Xal'atath herself called Elune an upstart goddess. It would not serve for Xal'atath to serve Elune, not after she called Elune an upstart goddess, unless, of course, she was referring to Elune as an upstart goddess, but it is the goddess that she serves. It may have been Elune that actually turned her to the void originally, before she became a void creature, being a high elf at the time. But those eyes are interesting. The glow in those eyes, it's on point. Xal'atath looks phenomenal. Like, absolutely phenomenal. And we see these markings all over her body. Her arms are full of it. Her face is full of it. She's clearly been powered up. She is the harbinger of the void. What does that exactly mean? Is she going to be an enemy? Is she going to be a friend? Is it going to be one of those uncomfortable relationships? We don't quite know. What I do know is, wow. That's what I know. I know that this looks phenomenal. She looks phenomenal. And I'm so excited to learn more about this, because we know Iridikron is connected to this. Dude, the story for this next 3 expansions is gonna be nuts. It's gonna be nuts. But all right, I've wasted enough of your time. I'm gonna get out of your hair. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Subscribe over on Patreon if you haven't already. $1 a month keeps this channel free from sponsorship. So if you don't want to see silly sponsorships that waste your time, $1 a month. That's all I ask. Links are in the description down below. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, be kind to each other, be good to each other. And I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.